Hey guys, today I'm here with the Flowmaster Delta Force cold air intake fitting all 2012 to 2018 3.6 liter V6 JK Wranglers. This is going to be a perfect option for the JK owner looking to gain some horsepower and torque numbers. Whenever you're helping your engine breathe, whether it be intake or exhaust, you're going to see a gain in performance. However, for us Jeep owners, most of that gain will be in the higher RPM range where we don't really spend a lot of time. However, you will notice and enjoy the improved throttle response. So I would recommend this cold air intake to somebody who is sticking to a drier climate, whether you're in the dunes desert racing or you're just rock crawling and pushing your Jeep to the max. I would not, however, recommend this to somebody who does a lot of water forging or mudding because the filter is a little bit more exposed. If you are looking to do some water forging and a lot of mudding, I would recommend looking at some of our snorkel options or even some of our closed box cold air intake options. So at the moment, this is going to be roughly $300, and that is an average price point for premium cold air intakes on the page right now. Personally, I think that this is a very well-built design with the larger intake tube, the larger filter, and it is closed off with a shield unlike some other less expensive options on the page, so I think that this is definitely worth the price. Install is going to be a very easy 1 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, and it's nothing you can't do in your driveway with a couple of hand tools and about a half an hour. So speaking of the install, let's jump into that now. The tools that I used for my install were an impact wrench, a pair of vice grips, a pair of snips, a pair of pliers, a 3/8 inch drive ratchet, a 1/4 inch drive ratchet, a 12mm wrench, a flathead screwdriver, a 5/32 Allen key, an 11mm, 10mm, and 8mm socket. So our first step to this install is popping off our engine cover. With that out of the way, we'll have full access to our intake. So I am going to start with the throttle body hose clamp. I'm using an 8mm socket just to loosen that up. You can also use a flathead screwdriver if you'd like, but that usually just quickens up the process. Then we can move over to the hose clamp that's holding on to our airbox. So you don't necessarily have to disconnect the airbox from the intake tube. However, we have our winch wires here, and in order for us to shimmy everything out, I'm just going to disconnect the tube from the airbox. So you're going to use the same 8mm socket and loosen that up. So now you can remove the bolts that are holding in your radiator hose right here. We do not have a second bolt because our bracket is broken on the top and the bottom, but this will be a 10mm bolt. I'm just using a 10mm socket. Get that out of there. And then that will free everything up from the radiator support. So now we can disconnect this tube, connect to the airbox. Just slide right off. And then we can disconnect our air temperature sensor. Now, like I mentioned, because we have our winch wires here, I'm gonna remove the tube first and then move over to our airbox. So probably a good idea to start up at the throttle body. Make sure you're watching that coolant hose. And you can pull that right out. So now we can remove our airbox. All you have to do is pull up and it will be held in by a couple of push pins down at the bottom. You just gotta give it a little tug. So this Flowmaster cold air intake will give you about a 4% increase in performance over your stock airbox setup. So there's a couple of reasons why that's going to happen. So starting off with your intake tube, this is going to be a larger diameter, allowing more airflow in to your throttle body and your intake manifold, increasing that performance. You're also getting a straight through style intake tube with this instead of your stock one, where it's got a couple of different attachments to catch contaminants. However, that's going to restrict some airflow, and since this one's straight through, it's a straight shot to your throttle body. So another piece of the puzzle that's going to increase that performance is the air filter. So with the Flowmaster, you're getting an 8-layer conical air filter that's pre-oiled, so it's going to be reusable and washable over time, instead of your paper air filter that you will have to throw out in so many miles and replace. That's going to stop any and really all contaminants from getting inside to your throttle body, into your intake, and into your engine, and it's really going to last a long time overall. So with the new Flowmaster cold air intake, you are going to receive a 4% increase in performance, and there's a couple of reasons for that. Starting with the intake tube, this is going to be an increase in diameter over your stock intake tube, which will allow more airflow into your throttle body. So this is also going to be a straight through design, as to where your stock intake tube, you see that there is an attachment at the bottom which can restrict some airflow. This is also going to be a lot more durable than your stock setup, made of a cross-linked polyurethane instead of just the plain old plastic. So another reason why you're going to see those benefits is the air filter. So you're getting a large conical 8-layer air filter that's pre-oiled and completely reusable and washable over time, over your stock paper air filter that's not going to hold up as well as this one will over time. You'll also be getting a heat shield with this, keeping all of that hot air from your engine bay away from your filter, keeping the air colder and more condensed, and ultimately increasing your airflow. Speaking of airflow, you are going to have an open airflow design. This is not going to be restricted at all, as to where your stock sealed airbox will only have this inlet here, so that's going to increase your airflow and increase your performance. So we do have to do a little bit of assembly before we can put this in our Jeep, so we can go ahead with that now. So before we can assemble our heat shield, we do have to transfer over our air temperature sensor. So all you have to do is grab a flathead. You're going to turn counterclockwise and pry up a little bit. You'll have a small ridge that you'll have to pry the plastic piece over, and then you can turn it. However, this is a little muddy, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but as soon as it frees up, should be able to twist it out. You'll be able to pop it right out. So you're going to have a couple of brackets that will be bolted up to the heat shield, and then you'll have this little plug here that you'll be able to bolt up to the bracket. So that's how your heat shield will be secured down in your engine bay. So I'm going to start with the side bracket here. I'm using one of the button head bolts, a lock washer, and a flat washer. And then I'm going to secure that on the other side with a flat washer, lock washer, and the provided nut. I'm going to get the other one in place before we tighten that down. Now we can attach the bottom two brackets with the same style hardware. So we can take the sharper angle, put the bolt through, put our flat washer, lock washer, and nut on the back of that. You should still be able to pivot it. So next we can attach our plugs to the bottom of each bracket. We use a bolt and then tighten down that with the 5/32 Allen key. So now you're going to use a 12mm wrench to hold this bottom portion down while you tighten down the button head bolt. So now we can attach our inlet for the air filter. The bigger portion is going to be facing the inside of the heat shield, and you'll be able to attach it down with the supplied rib nuts and the supplied hardware. You can tighten those down with the 5/32 Allen key. Now we can attach our rubber gasket. I have already pre-cut it, but it does have metal in the inside that you'll need to fit around. So now we can attach our fitting for our crankcase tubing. And you want to make sure that this is not completely tightened down. You only want this to roughly 8 foot-pounds. You do not want to strip anything. So after we have that fitting in, we need to attach our grommet so we can insert our air temperature sensor. All right. And you can insert your sensor carefully, making sure that you're not harming the plastic on the outside. Now we can attach our intake tube to the throttle body with the coupler and the provided hose clamps. So you can slip the coupler over here with the 2 hose clamps. I always prefer to place the hose clamps in the same direction, so when you tighten them down, you don't have to flop around. So before we actually attach it to the throttle body, you're not really gonna have a lot of room to work with. So I would recommend to plug in your air temperature sensor, as well as your crank casing hose. So just to keep it in place while we are putting in the heat shield, I'm gonna loosely tighten these. So now that our tube is in place, we can pop in our heat shield. So our next step is to take the provided hose clamps and attach our coupler to our heat shield. So now that everything's in place, we want to just tighten everything down. You don't want to over torque it and have this bubble up too much. But you just want to make sure that that pocket is sealed. Then we can do the same on the other coupler. So our next step is to attach our filter, and you can tighten that down with the same 8mm socket. Our next step is to attach the top of our shield. So all you have to do is place that over and take the 3 button head bolts and the washers, and you can secure them in the rib nuts. So after those are most of the way hand threaded, we can use a 5/32 Allen key and tighten those down. So now that everything's in place and pretty much tightened down, we do have to insert this hose clamp right on our crank hose. So we can just pull that right off, take some pliers and slide this over. And that'll make sure that everything is in place and stays in place. So once you slide the hose back over, we can move the clamp up and secure it on the fitting. So our last step is to attach these clamps to where our bracket was on our intake, or on our stock intake tube. This is gonna hold our coolant overflow hose. So you just have to slip the hose into the bracket, put the bracket inside of the stock clamp, and then you just have to bend it a little bit so it stays in place. Then we can thread our 10mm bolt all the way through. So after this clamp is attached, you can move over to your other clamp. Obviously, our clamp is broken, so I can't show you that. But after that step is finished, then your install is all finished. So that's gonna wrap it up for my review and install on the Flowmaster Delta Force cold air intake, fitting all 2012 to 2018 3.6 liter V6 Wranglers. For more videos like this, keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.